'Tis I, Dr. Dementia, and sit down, classes in session. We are here to discuss Hinterlands version 2.0, the update pack that just came out a little over a month ago, with 9 new cards being added to the set and 9 cards from the version 1.0 set being removed. As it stands now, this is the last update pack that has been released thus far, but who knows? If we're getting a new expansion, we're probably going to see another one. To the cards!
Fly, you fools!
So we're going to go over the cards that were removed from the version 1.0 set. They are as follows. We have Cash, Duchess, Embassy, Ill-Gotten Gains, the Mandarin, Noble Brigand, Nomad Camp, Oracle, and Silk Road. Now with Cash, it's a little bit simple to understand. While it does generate 3 and you only have to pay 5 for it, every single time you pick up one, you gain 2 coppers. You're junking yourself as a result of it, and unless you have a bunch of like multi-trash removals such as either Remake or Chapel, you're going to have a lot of issues really taking advantage of this card just because of that. And that's really all it does. It just generates junk for you. That's about it. Duchess, while it is a cheap card for a single top card inspection of your deck with a terminal silver, that's all it is. I mean, yes, it is particularly useful when you are doing a Duchy Duke kind of game, but other than that, you're not going to really see a lot more potential outside of it. And once your deck has taken shape, you don't need to really do the deck inspection. You'll be drawn to the cards faster than you need the inspection for. Embassy, it's a draw 5, discard 3, which isn't super bad. It's +1 in advantage, but it's only occasionally useful, and that silver gain for your opponents might either benefit them or it might junk them. 9 times out of 10, especially if you got this card early on, it's going to benefit them more than that. It really didn't need to exist. Most people would rather play Warehouse instead of giving your opponent a free 3 cost. It changes up their turns and actually gives them a much better advantage that you think. And I really wouldn't want to take advantage of it as a result of it. Ill-Gotten Gains, I've talked about this. It's a curse generator, yes, but you're going to just get the card for a curse generator. You don't want to play it to gain a copper, and it's only costing 1 for 5. It's not worth it. It really isn't, and I can't say that. Mandarin, while it is decent to get +3 as a terminal gold on a card, I mean, first off, you have to pull a card from your hand on top of your deck, so unless it's something really useless, you might screw your hand over more than you think. And the only way I could see this potentially being useful is if you're relying on terminal coin for all of your cards. And gaining and putting all the treasures back, yeah, that's got a niche use in trying to generate provinces with Horn of Plenty, but that's about it. Noble Brigand, I've talked about this. This was technically an upgrade to Thief, but when Bandit came out in the base game update pack, it pretty much superseded Thief in more ways than one. And it makes that much more powerful than Noble Brigand. And honestly, it's much better as a coin generator rather than Noble Brigand. A terminal copper with the chance of getting a silver or gold? I mean, yeah, you can buy it and then get its attack, but that's about it. Nomad Camp, while it is a decent woodcutter in all aspects, I would play woodcutter over this because I would not want to just forcefully top deck this card. That's not entirely useful to you, and I wouldn't even see myself doing that. As for Oracle, it was weak. It's not super strong. It can be a very slow card, and a lot of playtesting, you're going to see that actually happen. So even I wouldn't want to touch Oracle that much as a result of it. And lastly, Silk Road, it's just a watered down version of Gardens and or Fairgrounds. I mean, 1 victory point for every 4 victory cards. What if you're relying on your victory point generators? You might not see much power out of Silk Road. It's not going to have a lot of strength. So some of these cards, I can understand them wanting to be still used. They still have some mild potential. But again, I want to re-emphasize, any cards removed in between versions 1 and 2 from the base game and the 4 other expansions I've talked about, Intrigue, Seaside, Prosperity, and Hinterlands, it doesn't mean you don't have to play them. You might find combos that might work. You don't know. Try them with cards that come out. Try them with cards that come out and plunder. Thank you again! But you get the idea.
Ho ho!
And now let's roll right into these version 2.0 cards. First one we're going to look at is a new action attack card, Berserker. Costing 5 the purchase. Gain a card costing less than this. Each of the player discards down to 3 cards in hand. When you gain this, if you have an action in play, play this. Now this is really interesting in a couple of different ways. I want to break this down a little bit here. First off, that reaction effect. If you gained it in any sort of way, and you have an action in play, then you can just automatically play it, which is nice. But of course, your opponents can still counter with attack cards. Nothing, you know, whatever. It's not bad. But not only that, this is a gainer and a militia effect down in 1 without having the terminal silver to go with it. Let's split that the top part out. Gain a card costing less than this. Obviously, it has to be less than its cost. It's potent. It can still be great for generating some good cards, and as long as you're not going nuts, you could get this relatively early and do some disgusting stuff with it. Right off the bat, it actually will basically screw with your opponent's turn if they don't have a way to react against it. A way to work on the cost early on, obviously Lurker, gaining it from the trash. As long as you have the action, you can immediately play it before your treasures and still gain another card. Let's say, for example, your opponent played Monkey. Basically, this Berserker can counteract Monkey because it basically forces them to discard every card down to 3, including ones that Monkey has given them. Nice general attack, with it being a workshop-like effect, just packed into 1. And it's a nice, fun way to do it. You are still limited to that cost, and less than that to 0. Mid-game on this, if you can get it early with cost reduction, do it, because you can automatically play it. It is terminal, so you want to make sure you have village support just to play the extra actions on it. Stacking it up more than once is not going to be super beneficial. Couple of them in your deck is going to be fine, but you don't need more than 2 or 3. Overall, fun card. Next card is a new type, a treasure attack card, simply known as Cauldron. Costing 5 to purchase, generating 2 coin and +1 buy. The 3rd time you gain an action this turn, each other player gains a curse. Now this is action cards, so that subtype is very important depending on what's on the playfield. But this is a very interesting turnaround from ill-gotten gains because it's relying on the fact that you have to pick up the action cards in order for it to become a curse generator. And it having the attack variant still means your opponent can react to it. It is interesting. This relies heavily on buys. You basically need high money generation and multiple buys in order to really sync this card up. So Astrolabe, Workers Village, both the markets, because of the fact it's telling you when you gain an action this turn, the 3rd time you can do it, Black Market becomes a little bit more interesting because it helps shave off some of the extra costs necessary to get that. So as long as you're able to generate enough coin, this is a fun way to generate curses. And sometimes your opponent might not have a good response for it. If there's no trashers, they gotta deal with this. Cauldron's gonna be nasty, and this is cumulative, by the way. If you play more than 1 Cauldron, they're gonna get more than 1 curse if they get enough action. So, having a couple of these in your deck is not bad. On a 5 cost, it's decent for 2 and a buy. It does well, because you never expect a treasure to be the thing that generates the curses. All this time we've looked at other action cards. No, this is a fun way to do it. One good synergy with this, Peddler. Buy enough actions, use Cauldron, and then a couple more buys. You're basically buying out enough peddlers that the curses are going to shine out pretty well. So you basically want to increase your buys, terminal coin on most of your cards, anything that works. I would even say, yes, the Mandarin would be decent in this particular case because of the fact you could generate enough coin with the buy here in order to get a couple of decent cards. This is also a curiously play by the field kind of treasure. Whatever is there, analyze it. See if it's worth buying multiple of those action cards. If it isn't, you might have to pass on Cauldron. But other than that, if you can get the cost down, cost reduction, hint, then you're going to be able to work well with this card as well. So early to mid, don't get this in the late game because at that point, yes, the curse might detriment the deck, but if they're still able to pull in some decent cards, they could probably deal with getting a curse or 2 at that point, and you still have to pull into the Cauldron. This is an impressive card. I like it. Next up, we have a new action-reaction card, Guard Dog, costing 3 to purchase, plus 2 cards. If you have 5 or fewer cards in hand, plus 2 more cards. And for the reaction, when another player plays an attack, you may first play this from your hand. Now, oddly enough, we talked about a few reaction cards that are more powerful with their reactions than their standard actions. We now come back to one that is the other way around. This is to defend against hand size attacks, so Berserker, Militia, and Goons. The difference here, however, is the fact that you want to play this after those effects have resolved, because you want to maximize your draw power. Now, it might seem weird here. You could potentially play this on the last attack card they play. It couldn't be a hand size attack. It might be something else like a curse generator. At that point, you would want to play this because your hand is so minuscule, you'll be able to take advantage of plus 4 cards on your opponent's turn. That's one of the rare instances that would happen. But if you are only seeing hand size attack style cards, then you want to save Guard Dog basically for your turn. And the reason being is this. Look at it from this way. If your opponent played Berserker and you respond with Guard Dog, you're only going to play 2 cards and you still have to discard down to 3. You don't want to do that with this card. You basically want to be able to use Guard Dog in either one of 2 situations. One, you want to be able to play it for its top effect after all the hand size attacks have dissipated for that turn. After that, you want to play its reaction when they are generating those non-hand size attacks. Any curse generators, any like ghost ship effects, pirate ship effects, even bandit, even thief, noble brigand, any of those, that's when you want to play this card, because it also increases the chances of you surviving more intact against those type of attacks. In theory, it is a very decent card. And if timed correctly, it can be a very powerful card that you could benefit on your opponent's turn, saving you a free action and having more to work with in your hand. So obviously you do need village support with this, no matter what. You need to have multiple actions to play. And if you can predict your deck clear enough, you want to make sure that you can pull into Guard Dog as many times as possible. And 3 costs easy enough. So, with that in mind, this is definitely an early game card. I would not recommend on your opening hands because of the fact that you need a little bit more firepower in your deck or a little bit more powerful treasure to take advantage of it. Mid game, absolutely, because that's where the attack cards are going to start coming in much more frequently. Late game, at that point, it's just more fodder for you. It isn't overall too bad. It's a fun reaction card if you play it correctly. Next on the list, we simply have Nomads. Costing 4 to purchase, plus 1 buy, plus 2 coin. When you gain or trash this, plus 2 coin. Now, this is what an upgrade to Woodcutter should be. Not Nomad Camp, simply Nomads. Because you not only gain that Woodcutter effect, which I talked about time and time again, good for the Terminal Silver and a plus buy, but the fact that whenever you gain that card, you gain an extra Terminal Silver right off the bat. So, there's a lot of ways you can potentially make this work. Simply doing this on your buy gives you an extra 2 to use for other effects, other cards that could cost 2 coin. If it wasn't the only buy you got, you could get something really good, but it does help out. It's that trashing effect, which is going to be even nicer overall. You could basically take advantage of this with, there's a variety of cards, but we could look at Apprentice, we could look at Salvager, any of the trash for benefit cards, replace, remake, remodel, expand, forge, any of those cards will work out fantastic with this. And I mean, yeah, you could Throne Room, you could King's Court this card, get a nasty amount of buys and a lot of terminal coin. You have some varieties. This is good, alright? This takes the basic woodcutter and gives it something a little bit more special. This is much more useful if you have to trash on your turn, but gaining it as well can be a purchase, can be Ironworks, could be Workshop, can be Lurker, any of those ways, could be University as well. Those are going to get you some extra coin on your turn, and that's basically how you want to do it. You could gain and trash on the same turn. So let me tell you right now, Lurker is going to be fantastic for this card because you can basically gain enough of these in there, couple that with Chapel, and basically trash them again. You are going to maximize the amount of coin you get on your turn. It is going to be disgusting. Because of the cost? Early game, yes. Because Terminal Silver with an extra buy, you never know when that can be handy, giving you an extra 2 coins when it goes bye-bye. Mid-game, absolutely. Making out your deck a lot better, going for some potential trashing and gaining combos that you could basically recycle these cards if done correctly. Endgame, I would hold on to a couple of these in your deck rather than doing that effect, just so that you can get the buys. But this is a card that you can use basically all around, and if you look at the supply piles and you have some sweet cards that can really recycle Nomads over and over and over again, it's going to be disgusting, and you're going to have a lot of fun with it when you get those buys into play. This is a fantastic upgrade, and I love it. Next up, we're going to talk about Souk. Costing 5 to purchase, +1 buy, +7 coin. However, -1 coin per card in hand, you can't go below 0. When you gain this, trash up to 2 cards from your hand. Now, this is utterly disgusting. And that -1 coin per card is basically the best condition you can have for a card like this. This generates more than a platinum if done correctly. But in short, if Guard Dogs fails against hand size attacks for you, this is going to be the card that helps you recover from it. And you basically need to somehow generate 4 extra coin above this to gain a colony. Now, obviously, -1 coin per card in hand, you can't go below 0. But that isn't bad when you can think about the aptitude of ways that this can work. First off, if your deck was basically using terminal actions for your money generation rather than treasure cards themselves, not to mention victory point generation as well, which means you weren't relying heavily on victory cards themselves to generate the coin for you, this card can basically rock, because this could potentially be one of the final cards you play, and it should be one of the final cards you can play in your deck, which is why that gain effect is so powerful. Let's look at it this way. If you gain the card, trash up to 2 cards from your hand. First off, that's optional. Second of all, you definitely want to use this on basically all of your trash cards, all of your junk cards. In the end, if you are generating coin from your action cards, you don't need a single copper or even a single estate, which means you can already maximize potentially the amount of hand size reduction you can get. And that's a strategy I didn't think we would come across here. Having minimal hand size is going to be perfect. Second of all, you throw Room or King's Court this card, that's basically ridiculous. And obviously it's a terminal action. You need village support. But above all else, regardless if it's a Throne Room or King's Court you play with it, this should be one of the final cards you play. You want to maximize, or rather minimize, that minus treasure reduction as much as possible. And if you could King's Court a Souk on the final action you have, you could potentially generate up to a maximum of 21 coin and 3 buys. You will walk away with at least a colony and a province. If you are generating coin from your other action cards, you are definitely walking away from 2 colonies. This is absolutely disgusting. I can't with this card. I've never seen a card generate this much coin. Hell, when we talk about the next few expansions, they don't go anywhere near this. So yes, this is a viable downside. This is a legitimate downside for a disgusting card. Because if it did not have that downside, this card would not have cost 5. This card would cost 8 or 9. Basically, in order to really use its effect. You're going to want this in the mid game. You don't want this in the early game because you will start trashing your cards in the early game, but you will not get a strong treasure output from this. You want to be able to take advantage of this when the junk has disappeared from your deck, and you can maximize its potential output. You might not always get that +7, but if you can get +5 or even +4, it's still going to be more potent than even Mandarin. And this is going to be a great card to use. So mid-game, at the earliest, you could go late game because of its generation. You have to make sure that it fits into your deck and you have the actions to it. This is a disgusting card, but it is fantastic in all the right ways. Next, we have another new reaction card, Trail. Costing 4 to purchase, +1 card, +1 action. When you gain, trash, or discard this, other than in cleanup, you may play it. Now, I've talked about some cantrips that have some basic and simple effects that go along with it. This is the first time I've seen a cantrip with its own recycling effect. let me give you an example here. I don't even know to talk about the +1 card, +1 action. We're looking completely at that reaction effect. Any trash for benefit card that you use, we're going to say first off, remodel. You remodel, trash the trail to gain a gold. You will be able to not only play trail as a result of that, but you will also get it taken from the trash pile, put into your discard pile. You are essentially recycling the card over and over and over again, which means you don't need that many trails. You could have a whole bunch of trails, that's fine. You will overdeck so hard with this card. It is amazing. And basically, you don't want to play this on your opponent's turn. Sure, you will get a +1 card, +1 action, but it's going to go into your discard pile. You don't want to do it then. You want to do it on your turns where you can maximize this. So you basically want to just be able to trash this and discard this before you purchase anything to continuously take advantage of a simple cantrip. That's it. That's all it is. But it's a cantrip that, if done correctly, can recycle itself. So your top priority for this are your trash for benefit cards. Remodel, remake, replace, expand, forge, any of those. Use and trail as a basis to play it, to put it into your discard. That way you still hold on to it for the next time you play it. And then, of course, Lurker. Because you will gain it immediately to your hand, you can play it, and then boom, goes right to your discard. You don't lose out on it. For a simple cantrip, that's not bad. This is going to be powerful in trash for benefit effects, which is going to be good when you consider the next expansion we're going to talk about. I will go into that at the end of the video, however. Overall, this is a nice, fantastic card. Not in the early game. You basically need your trash for benefit effects by early mid-game. At that point, then you can pick this up. I would say if you wanted to pick it up early, you could. On a 4-3 split, fine. It is a cantrip, it will draw into it. You won't lose anything as a result of it, just having more space. Yes, Ironworks and the Workshop gain effects will also take advantage of this as well. University also, but you will find more of a benefit recycling with trash than you will from gain. This is not a bad card. This can be good for a few different options, but overall, it's useful and I like it. Alright, so next we have another new reaction card, simply called Weaver. Costing 4 to purchase, gain 2 silvers or a card costing up to 4, that's the action part. When you discard this other than in cleanup, you may play it. Now this is a little bit interesting. We take traders and actually give you some viable options. Rather than be forced to deal with a whole bunch of silvers, if you don't need the silvers, then you can at least pick up something costing up to 4. So, cost reduction can work very well with Weaver. And being able to discard it other than in cleanup, you can play it. So, hand size attacks become a little bit more powerful. Now, you won't get the cost reduction unless your opponent plays it, but that isn't to say that you can't still take advantage of it. If it's early game, then you'd be able to pick up a couple of silvers quickly, saving you some money and giving you more options to pick out some other cards. This isn't bad. When you're not forced to deal with extra silvers that you're not going to need, then you're going to have some use. This is going to be more of an early game or mid-game card because, like I said, with the cost reduction, you'll have a lot of variety here. And you now have basically discard fodder. Anything with hand size attacks, or even warehouse, or even embassy for that matter, surprisingly enough, those cards are going to be useful when you discard with Weaver. And if you have multiple Weavers discarded, you're getting multiple cards. So you could use one for the silvers, and then the other for another action card that you can pick up, and then something else in the Kingdom Supply pile. And this is great against, if you have Vassal, because if Vassal discards Weaver, you can react to Weaver, because it doesn't limit how it's discarded. So if you discard from the top of your deck, if you mill deck, this is useful too. This is not a bad card. It's very potent. I mean, there's not much more I can say about it. It is basically a Workshop variant card with a little bit of an extra touch to it. It is a Workshop with a reaction. So early to mid, I mean, it's obviously not useful in the late game, but discard fodder is nothing to scoff at if it is trash for benefit, or if you can basically, create a money engine and use big money strategies on this, then yeah, Weaver would be useful in the late game too, but definitely an early to mid game card, and a very powerful one, because of how specific and detailed the effect is. It's quick and concise, and it's overtly good for it. And it's a very good card. Next up, we have another cantrip that's a little bit more unique in the form of Wheelwright. Costing 5 to purchase, plus 1 card, plus 1 action. You may discard a card to gain an action card, costing as much as it or less. Now, looking at the surface of this, this is useful if you are having issues gaining some of the more expensive cards in the supply piles and need a little bit more of a jump start. And this is where Wheelwright comes into play. Now, early on, if you somehow magically gained Peddler, you could discard a Peddler to basically gain a Peddler or something else. This is good for gaining a lot of powerful cards. You can get any action card available to you. So you can get Prince, you can get King's Court, you can get Peddler, you can get Grand Market. It's restricted by cost, but only in terms of what's discarded. You can then just pick up any card after that. So your price point is whatever is in your hand. So this is not going to look super well in the early game, because all you're going to have is coppers and estates. So the most you can pay for is a 2-cost card. As you get your silvers, as you get your 4-cost cards, specifically any villages that you definitely want more of, cities especially, this is where you're going to want to do this. This is how you're going to get to pile outs a lot faster. So your peddlers are going to be prime targets. Any village is going to be a prime target. Any market's going to be a prime target. And, you know, even some decent treasures are going to be prime target. This isn't bad for what it does, and it basically gives you 1 for 1. You lose out on using the card on your turn for gaining an extra 1. So, one strategy is to basically thin out your deck. If you can play into your deck every single turn, then Wheelwright is going to help get that. Overall, it's still a decent card. So, early to mid, I don't see a big use in the late game unless you had, unless you needed more peddlers or more cities, or King's Court was available to you, more expensive cards. It really depends. So more along the lines of what's available to you in the piles, and you can take advantage of those cards. Not a bad one, though. And the final card for Hinterlands version 2.0, which is HUD. Costing 5 the purchase, plus 4 cards, discard 2 cards revealed. If they're both actions, each of the player gains a curse. Now this takes Embassy and adds a curse generator effect to it. You will go plus 1 in card advantage, not bad. And depending on the action cards that are available to you, this can generate some curses for you. Is it super strong? Not really. I mean, there are faster ways to gain curses, but it is a lot better option than ill-gotten gains could be. You basically could wait till the end of your turns to play Witch's Hut, maximize any action cards you know you don't want to play, or those you're not going to be able to play into, and at the very least, you walk away with some possibly more treasure, and your opponent gets a curse out of it. Not bad. You know, curse generators have their thing. They can be hindered if there's trash or benefit, or trashing in general, so not to really be a big issue. King's Court of Throne Room could potentially add on to the curses, but you lose out on a lot of actions, so you shouldn't be doing this quite often. You basically want to stack this up with villages, and Witch's Hut should be one of the last cards you play, especially if you're going for big gain and big money, because otherwise you're going to lose out on a lot of potential coin. So if you know it's going to be the last card you want to play before you start purchasing, then you know you could warrant getting rid of a couple of extra actions that you aren't going to need. Definitely late early game, just because of the 5 cost. You could go mid, but it will have some potential synergies down the line with some other cards, but not a bad one for what it's worth. And that brings us to the end of Hinterlands version 2.0. Again, this is the last expansion that received an update pack as of this year. So as we continue down the line, we're going to be introducing just expansions that had no update packs, so they are just going to be one-offs going forward. It should be fun. The next one we're going to go into is going to be the 7th expansion of Dementia, simply known as Dark Ages. And it's actually interesting, we've been talking about some trashing effects. We're going to see that Dark Ages has a lot of heavy trashing mechanics. We'll go into more detail, as well as some new mechanics involving new cards. It should be fun to check out when we get to it. And with that, thank you very much for watching, guys. If you liked the video, be sure to give it a like and comment. If you want to see more of this, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Every little bit will help me a whole lot, and I will appreciate it. You can follow me on Twitter for more updates, as well as my Twitch for streams. I'm hoping to get some more streams out this week. It's been a little bit of a chaotic week, but I should be able to get some stuff going on. And don't forget to check out my videos of my fluffy fluffers, Figaro and Sabrina, on the YouTube channel. They always like to get some attention. Thank you again, guys, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.